Japan, Himuro, Yamagata Prefecture, July 25, 2019. Many believe that we are alone in the universe. However, one day something inexplicable happened. Something that forced us to ask ourselves, is this really true? In the mountainous region of Japan, on the outskirts of Yamagata Prefecture, lies a small, peaceful town called Himuro. Far from the hustle and bustle of big cities, life here unfolded in a way that seemed unchanged for generations. Beautiful landscapes, picturesque hills, and wide rice fields created a pastoral scenery that the locals took for granted, while for newcomers it appeared idyllic. In winter, snow blanketed the area with a thick layer of white, and in summer, the evenings were warm, with the sky above the town shining with thousands of stars. Kazuo Nakamura was born and raised in Himuro. He was a middle-aged man whose life flowed in a simple and orderly manner. For years, he had worked on the family rice farm inherited from his father. His 2 adult sons had long left home to study and work in Tokyo, leaving Kazuo alone in rural quiet. His wife, who had passed away several years earlier, had been his support and companion. And since her departure, loneliness had become his daily companion. Although Himuro was small and little known, the residents were very close-knit. It was a typical small community where everyone knew each other and was ready to help in times of need. Kazuo often visited the local store, where he chatted with the owner, Mr. Yoshiro, about everyday matters. Not much happened in the town, but that was just fine with Kazuo. His life was stable, calm, and predictable. Though he sometimes missed the hustle and bustle of Tokyo, he loved his land and the rituals associated with it. Every morning, he woke up at dawn, worked in the fields, and in the evening, after dinner, he followed his regular ritual, stepping out onto the porch with a cigarette, gazing at the night sky. The town of Himuro, surrounded by mountains, was in one of the least light-polluted areas of Japan, making it possible to see the stars in all their glory. Every night, Kazuo stared at the sky, contemplating his past, his future, and a life that seemed to flow in harmony with nature. However, on that August night in 2012, Kazuo experienced something that would forever change his perception of the world. It was a typical summer night, and the air was warm but refreshingly cool, thanks to a gentle breeze from the nearby mountains. Kazuo sat on the porch of his wooden house smoking a cigarette. This was a moment he had been waiting for all day. He cherished those times when, after a long day's work, he could sit on the veranda, gaze at the night sky, and forget everything for a few minutes. He took a deep breath, feeling the warmth of the tobacco and the cool breeze on his skin. In that moment, he noticed something unusual. It wasn't the sound of the wind or the rustling of trees. Something in the sky caught his attention. At first glance, it seemed like ordinary twinkling stars, but after a moment, he realized the lights he saw were moving. They were far on the horizon, above the mountains surrounding Himuro, but their motion was unlike anything he had known from planes or satellites. They were too fast and erratic. At first, he wasn't sure what he was seeing. Just ordinary twinkling stars, he thought. The sky was clear, and billions of tiny dots illuminated the space above him. But something was off. What initially seemed like mere bright flashes quickly transformed into something that defied rational explanation. Stars don't move, and what he saw was definitely moving. At first, it was gentle, barely noticeable, but then it sped up more and more. The lights in the sky, which initially appeared as single points, suddenly began to move in a way he had never seen before. They changed direction, accelerated, stopped, and split apart, forming formations that made no sense within the context of known aviation technology. Kazuo tried to rationalize what he was witnessing. Various possibilities raced through his mind. Satellites, meteors, perhaps military exercises. But none of those explanations fit with what was happening before his eyes. Kazuo's heart began to race. The cigarette he held in his hand, forgotten, had nearly burned down to the filter and he remained motionless, staring at the sky. The lights, there were 5 of them, moved in a way that sent shivers down his spine. Each object shone with bright light, changing colors every few seconds. At first, they were cool white lights, then transformed into blue, and finally into deep red. With each passing moment, Kazuo felt an increasing sense of unease. At that moment, one of the lights, previously floating in a loose formation, suddenly stopped. The other 4 objects did the same, as if they were synchronized. They were now positioned in a perfect triangle in the night sky, hovering above the mountains like motionless, bright points in space. Kazuo felt a chill run down his spine. Suddenly, the air around him felt different, denser, more intense. It was reminiscent of the feeling one experiences before a storm. Although there was silence all around, Kazuo had a strange sensation that he could hear something. It wasn't a distinct sound, but a gentle, low-frequency hum that seemed to emanate from deep within the earth. It was so subtle that for a moment he wondered if it was just his imagination. But with each passing moment, that feeling intensified. Something was approaching, something he could neither comprehend nor anticipate. Kazuo's heart raced even faster, almost as if it knew that something unknown was coming. His body trembled, not from the cold, but from something else. A mix of fear and fascination he had never experienced before. He had no idea what was happening, but instinct told him that what he was witnessing had nothing to do with human technology. It was something else, something that couldn't be easily explained. As the objects hung motionless above the mountains, Kazuo felt as though he was being watched. This feeling was almost physical, as if something or someone had directed their attention toward him. He couldn't explain it, but he felt that these lights, these objects, were not random. They seemed to be searching for something, examining the area. Or perhaps, him? He had the impression that these mysterious beings had the ability to see beyond mere physical senses, as if they could penetrate his mind and soul. Suddenly, one of the objects broke away from the rest of the formation. Its intense light was so bright that Kazuo had to squint to look at it. The luminous object began to descend toward the ground, moving with incredible speed but in complete silence. It seemed to slice through the air without the slightest sound. Kazuo watched, breathless, as the object approached him, his mind circling around one question. What is it? When the object was about 100 meters above the ground, Kazuo could finally discern its details. It wasn't just a point of light. It was a disc, metallic, smooth, and devoid of any openings or visible screws. Its surface shimmered, and reflections of light bounced off it in a way that seemed unreal. The disc appeared to pulse, and its metallic surface changed colors in response to the surroundings, reflecting the stars and the soft light of the moon. Kazuo felt his heart beating faster. He was now completely paralyzed, not from fear, but from pure, uncontrollable fascination. What he was witnessing was so incredible that his mind struggled to process it. He was there, on his farm, in a small town forgotten by the world, and before him, just a few meters above the rice field, hovered an object of unknown origin. Everything felt so unreal that he nearly forgot how to breathe. The disc hovered above the rice field, just a few meters from his home. It slowly began to rotate around its own axis, its surface shimmering with colors as if reacting to its surroundings. Kazuo stared at this phenomenon, unable to look away. Each change in the color of the disc seemed to emanate energy, and the pulsating light put him in a hypnotic trance. Kazuo's heart raced. With each rotation of the disc, his mind wove images and stories that made no sense. He tried to understand what it meant. Was it a form of life, or perhaps technology beyond his comprehension? He wondered if this object was here for him, or for someone else. He felt incredibly helpless, yet filled with an irresistible curiosity. As the disc continued its dance in the air, Kazuo noticed that a gentle glow was emanating from its surface, creating swirling patterns. The sky above him transformed into a kaleidoscope of colors: greens, blues, and deep purples. It felt as if the object was engaging him in an invisible conversation, communicating in a way he couldn't grasp. Suddenly, the disc stopped, and its light focused on Kazuo. He felt as though all the energy radiating from the object was converging toward him. At that moment, images flooded his mind, snapshots that seemed nonsensical yet familiar. It felt as if someone or something was trying to convey a message, not in words, but through emotions and visions. He recalled images of family gatherings, the laughter of children running through the fields, harvesting crops, and then something darker, like a fog enveloping everything. Fear, but also hope. Kazuo understood that he was not alone. Perhaps this mysterious presence observing him had something to say, something that mattered both to him and to the world. At that very moment, a bright vertical beam of light shot from the disc, illuminating the entire area. Kazuo had to shield his eyes as the intensity of the light flooded the rice field and his home. It felt as if time had momentarily stopped. It was a transcendental experience, like the entire universe had concentrated in one moment. His thoughts became disoriented, yet he felt more alive than ever. He felt his body vibrating with energy, while a wave of calm washed over him. In that moment, he realized he had nothing to fear. Perhaps what was happening wasn't a threat, but a form of contact he had always longed for. He sensed that what he was experiencing was part of a greater plan, something beyond human understanding. As the beam of light faded, the disc began to rise higher, disappearing into the clouds. Kazuo stood there, stunned and disoriented. His mind still circled around what he had seen, and in his heart, he carried a mixture of fear and euphoria. He had no idea what this experience meant, but he knew something within him had changed. He felt as if he were in a new dimension of reality where anything was possible. Time passed, but Kazuo remained in a state of disbelief. The night sky gradually calmed, and the stars began to shine over the rice field once more. Kazuo returned home, but his thoughts still revolved around what had happened. With each passing day, Kazuo tried to return to normalcy. But the image of the disc and the beam of light kept resurfacing. Every glance at the sky evoked memories. As days went by, his interest in the phenomenon began to grow. He knew he wasn't alone. Other residents of Himuro had also seen something extraordinary that night. He decided to gather them together to share their experiences and collectively seek answers. The residents of Himuro approached his idea with curiosity. Kazuo organized the first meeting, where neighbors who had witnessed the lights gathered. Each participant shared their observations, recounting their experiences. The stories were varied, from accounts of soaring objects to sounds accompanying the phenomena. With each tale, the atmosphere became increasingly charged yet full of fascination. Kazuo hadn't drastically changed. He was still the same man who had worked the fields all his life, but now he felt a need to engage in something greater. The group began to meet regularly, creating a space for discussions about UFO phenomena. They became a community focused on exploring what seemed unknown and mysterious. Kazuo felt that what he had experienced could be the beginning of something larger. His passion for UFO-related issues grew, and he gained prominence as the group's leader. He helped others understand that what they had seen was not just a coincidence, but part of a broader phenomenon. Together, they investigated local legends and took notes from their observations, collecting evidence that might shed light on what had happened that night. Each meeting brought new information, and group members enthusiastically engaged in the search. With the help of the local library, they began gathering materials on UFOs and unexplained phenomena. Kazuo passionately shared his experiences, while others contributed theirs, forming a support network for those who felt isolated in their encounters. Their small community gained a new purpose. What once seemed impossible now became their everyday reality. Kazuo understood that he was not alone in this quest for truth. With each new meeting, their determination grew, and their bonds strengthened. Each day, gazing at the sky, Kazuo felt that his story was just beginning. Though he didn't have answers to all the questions, he sensed that together, They could uncover not only the mysteries of that night, but also the meaning behind what had occurred. With hope and determination, he faced the future, ready for whatever the mysterious night sky might bring. Don't be afraid to speak the truth. If you have your own story, experiences, or evidence related to UFOs, please email us. Your story is important and can help others who have had similar experiences. UFO X-Files connects us. You are not alone.